look to start the meeting in a few minutes. We're also waiting for one more commissioner to join us. So if you don't mind, please hang on for a couple more minutes remaining on mute. Thank you. So Jeanette, I haven't been able to reach Tony. We can still go on with the meeting. We don't have anything on the agenda that requires a vote.
Okay.
Votes would be the only thing that would be precluded. So it's at your discretion how long you would like to hold starting the meeting for Tony.
I think we should do it on time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're live right now on YouTube already.
So Jeanette, okay, I see. Just so
Should we read the
Jeanette,
script?
it is your meeting.
Okay. We are having this meeting according to the rules and regulations of the state, and the public participation guidelines are: we are using Zoom webinar for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. People registering to be an attendee must use their names, otherwise they will not be allowed to participate in this discussion. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. In addition, the water line abutters, PFAS impacted residents, have been invited to participate as Tier 1 participants. They will have an opportunity for questions, comments after their presentation as stated in the posted agenda. If you would like to speak during that time, please use the raise hand icon and the chair will call on you in order raised. Please state your name for the record when called on. Confirming member access. As a preliminary matter, this is Jeanette Topham, Chair of the Nantucket Memorial Commission Service and Public Relations Subcommittee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons as anticipated are on the agenda, present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. Not sure if everyone will be in attendance. Tony Buscarin, Andrea Planza, Phil Marks. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tom Rafter,
Here.
Noah Carberg,
Here.
Lily Sylvia.
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Rich Lasden, McFarland Johnson Incorporated.
Here.
Jennifer Zorn, McFarland Johnson Incorporated.
She's not a presenter.
Okay. Georgie Nugent, McFarland Johnson Incorporated.
Here.
Mina Macarios, Anderson and Krieger.
Here.
Olympia Bowker, Anderson and Krieger.
Here.
Anticipated water line abutters, I'm not going to read your names just because there's so many of them. And I apologize to anybody if I mispronounced your name. This meeting is now the open meeting of the Airport Commission Service and Public Relations Subcommittee being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment as previously noted. For this meeting, the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission Service and Public Relations Committee convened by video conference via Zoom webinar is posted in the town's website identifying the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to share your screen. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording meeting. Meeting materials, all supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now returning to the first term on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of your business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Members, to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment for those members of the public who have, you have joined the meeting and via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. And apologize for you because I have eye trouble and I'm just reading this, so I apologize. Welcome, everybody. So, Rich, are you going to start this meeting?
No is going to start the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To quickly review the meeting format, I see we have a few Tier 1 participants who are in the book right now as attendees. We will be working to move you over two panelists that will be ongoing. And again, if you're on the screen, you're with us as Tier 1 attendees. We will be soliciting questions and comments from you. Under item 4 is the agenda. That's why you're here, so you can interact as that. At that level, the public is also welcome to join and comment. They're not on screen, and that would be under item 5 for the agenda. So purpose of this meeting is to introduce you to the airport's water main project, a little addition by subtraction. This is not a technical PFAS data meeting. We view this as this is a civil service or civil project introduction meeting. We're here to talk about how the actual project will work. We do remain available for PFAS data and technical related questions. Please feel free to use our provided contact information offline relative to that. We have about a 18-slide presentation. It's going to be given by Richard Laston. He's our principal consulting engineer at McFarland Johnson. He's leading a number of airport-related finance, planning, and infrastructure projects. We've also assigned his firm with overall management of our PFAS investigation and response as well, including designing and managing the installation of the water line and the water service connections. So with that, Rich, I would like to turn it over to you, and I believe you can share your screen for the presentation.
Yes, I'm going to do that. Screen 2. So does everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, you see the presentation screen? Okay.
That's the PowerPoint, yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, everybody. My name is Rich Laston with McFarland Johnson. As Noah pointed out, we are the airport's consulting engineer, and we are here to talk to you about the water main construction project for homes along Skyline Drive and MVR. So the first slide here is a slide that many of you have probably seen before. This is the airport proper, and these are the homes on the airport's boundaries that have been tested for PFAS based on the science team that we have and the licensed site professional who is managing the mitigation and response action provided by the state. So this Skyline Drive is right here. There's a couple of homes down here at the end that have been impacted. And then MVR, I think the most people on this call are on MVR. And these are the homes along MVR that will also be getting a water main. The project is broken out into 6 work areas. The first work area is Skyline Drive. The second work area is to extend the water main from the intersection where it ends today to the airport property line. The third phase comes in the airport fence and heads over to the runway. There is a separate phase that crosses the end of the runway. This has impacts to airport operations. So this was designed separately. It's being done at night under certain weather conditions to limit the impact of aircraft operations. There's a remaining piece on the airport to get over to MVR. And then MVR is broken into 2 phases, divided at this point by a gate from the airport so that we can maintain emergency response to MVR during construction. MVR will be closed and the work will be done at night. And in order to maintain emergency response personnel will be able to travel from MVR through an airport gate onto the airfield, come around their service roads interior, and then re-access MVR through a gate here. So that's why the road is divided into 2 portions. The project is approximately 142 days long. As we described, most of it will be day work. There are some night work. Across the end of the runway is at night and MVR is at night. The rest of the work is during the day. We will be maintaining traffic conditions through flaggers or police personnel to maintain traffic on the streets. Comet Water Company, who is your water company, will be providing daily project oversight. They will be on the ground overseeing the construction by the contractor. And the project is following municipal standards. We worked with the Wannacomet Water Company to design the system according to their standards. The project is the installation of a water main. It's buried 5 feet deep. That is a standard for frost protection. So there'll be an excavation in the road. They will put in the water line and then backfill the road. For Skyline Drive, there'll be a trench in the pavement, and then it will be repaved at the end of the project. Montahanset Road will also have a trench in it that will be repaved after the project. MVR is currently a gravel road, and when it is all said and done, it will be returned to gravel. This is a typical water service connection. So after the water main is installed, every house gets a water connection point. In the water company terminology, it's called a curb stop, and that is put at the edge of the public right-of-way. And from that point forward, it is considered ultimately your private water line. For this project, the airport is constructing all of it. But for people on this call that are not directly impacted by PFAS, there will be a curb stop installed for you that in the future, should you wish to join the water district, you will have that opportunity. We have shown the alignment of that curb stop on the drawings. As we get out during construction, if you wish to have the curb stop adjusted one way or the other, because it's going to impact your driveway or impact vegetation, then please inform the airport and we can adjust that as necessary. We will be meeting with all of the directly impacted homeowners throughout this project. We have a series of meetings and legal agreements that we have to discuss with all of the impacted homeowners, and that will be occurring over the next couple of months. So the state of Massachusetts has determined that PFAS in the well greater than 20 parts per trillion is the threshold for domestic water contamination. So anybody that has more than 20 parts per trillion in their well is getting a connection to the municipal water. If you are less than that, there'll be a curb stop, as I mentioned, for your future use should you desire to install that later on your own. And then this project will be installing the water main. And then, as I mentioned, we will come back and connect houses up. We have to meet with every individual home to discuss routes from the street to their house. And then also internal plumbing. As we disconnect your home from your well, there has to be some plumbing work done interior to each of your homes. So Skyline Drive is the first piece. Currently, the public water main ends on Woodland Road or Drive, excuse me. And this project will install a water main down Skyline Drive to the end. There are 2 homes at the end of Skyline Drive. I believe it's parcel 87A and 77 that require water service based on the testing that has been performed. So this main will support those 2 homes, but will be available to all these other homes to hook up should they wish to do that in the future. As I said, the roads will be open except for MVR during construction, and we are following Mass DOT road closure standards. We are working with the fire department and the police department to ensure that we have proper flagging and proper police details should they be required. Work area 2 is bringing the water main from the water main ends approximately at Evergreen and Airport Road. It ends approximately right there, the existing water line. We are going to tap into that and then construct this first piece, which gets us to an airport gate so that we can get on airport property and then move on to the next phases. The work area 3 follows an airport permit road and then crosses through some trees and then heads on to the airfield. Work area 4, as I spoke earlier, does impact the end of the runway. So that is a different kind of construction to help limit the impacts to the airfield operations. And it's also done at night, and it's done during clear visibility so that the instrumentation on the runway is not impacted. Work area 4 is this piece here. It has this interesting jog in it because we worked very closely with Natural Heritage to protect endangered species on the airport. And there are some endangered and protected plant life in the airfield. So we sort of jogged around the protected plants to install this piece of water line. And then work area 5 is the first half of MVR. As I said before, we stop at this airfield access gate to allow emergency personnel to go around the construction for this phase in order to be able to respond to these people. As I said, MVR will be closed. It will be night work. This is planning on happening in the off season after Labor Day. So hopefully that will limit the disruption to homes. And then work area 6 is the last piece of the project, this piece of MVR down here. So the project has gone out to bid. The bid was opened a couple of weeks ago. Last night at the airport's commission meeting, they recommended the award of the contract to the contractor. We have engaged in conversations with them. The project was hoping to start in August. Our conversations with the contractor, they have indicated to us that there are supply chain concerns. I think we've all heard about supply chain concerns because of COVID and some of the other issues that are out there. And it appears that they will not be able to start until the fall. So we are working with them to better understand construction impacts based on supply issues. And we actually have a pre-construction meeting with them this Friday where we will discuss that in length. As I said, it's 142 days of construction under 6 sequences. And Noah Carberg, who started the conversation, is the primary contact. Should anybody on this discussion have any questions or concerns, he would be the contact to reach out to. So how is this being done? What's the steps to happen? How do you get to where you need to go? So the DEP has mandated that if water has over 20 parts per trillion, your water has to be cleaned either to a POET system. Some of you on this call have had a POET system installed, which is a water filtration system, and you've been provided bottled water. The ultimate solution is the airport is installing the water main to move people over to the town water. And there's been a series of steps that have occurred. And as we move forward, there'll be a series of additional steps. The first step is this meeting that we're talking about right now to discuss the project in general. Based on this meeting, to everybody that we are connecting your house to the water main, we will be contacting you to set up an individual site visit. Some of the things we want to understand at the individual site visit is how does the water service get from the street to your house? And are there impacts to your driveway? Are there impacts to your lawn and shrubs? One of the biggest challenges is where's your septic field? You can't put a water main through your septic field. So we have to understand that. And then we have to understand the interior plumbing of your house. Some of your parcels have multiple structures, sometimes that have one well, sometimes that have multiple wells. And we have to understand how we are going to connect the domestic water to your structures. So we will be doing individual site visits to your homes and coming up with sketches on how that will ultimately be done. Once that is done, there is a series of legal agreements that the airport is going to engage with you on, policy statements and access agreements and possibly reimbursement agreements depending on how the process plays out. So the airport and their legal counsel will be sharing these documents with each impacted homeowner in the future. Once that is done, we coordinate permitting with the town of Nantucket and the Wannacomet Water Company. Then we connect the service to each of your homes. And Noah, maybe you want to be able to opine on this one a little more. The Airport Commission has taken a position that they will provide credit towards each impacted homeowner. And I guess, Noah, I'll let you speak on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. The commission policy from, I believe it was a May commission meeting, is to provide a $1,000 on-bill credit directly to Wannacomet Water Company. What that means in practice is that the first $1,000 worth of billed water service will go directly to the airport, and the airport will pay that bill on the account. So you will not see the first $1,000 worth of your water bill.
Thank you. So the airport has been working very diligently on Nobodere Way neighborhood to connect those homes to the water district because they have a water main in front of their house. And they've been working very diligently on trying to hire contractors to install the water mains. And there's been a series of challenges on having that happen. So the airport has created another opportunity in that should it be quicker or more convenient to the homeowners that you hire your own contractor to install the water service through your property and then do the interior plumbing, that the airport would reimburse you for that work. And you would just manage it on your own instead of having the airport do it on their own. So there's a sort of a very similar process for that work, should you choose that option. The homeowner would contact the airport to let them know that they want to do it on their own. Similar to if the airport did it, we would meet them to review the work. We would develop a cost estimate. Similar to if the airport did it, there's still a water policy, and in this case, it would be a release agreement. You would do the work and you'd release the airport from any oversight of your work. There is a legal requirement that you obtain a W-9. That's how the airport has to pay you. The owner would then hire a contractor and plumber and complete the work. The airport would review it. We come up with an estimate first, and then after the work is all said and done, your plumbers and contractor could have a different opinion on cost. We want to understand the difference in cost to ensure that the airport and you have a fair understanding of the cost, and then they would pay you for those costs. And then similar to if the airport manages it, there would be $1,000 credit towards the water bills. So what does the project look like for your home? So there are two numbers that the state of Massachusetts has provided as far as water contamination. Everybody above 20 parts per trillion is required to have treated water or moved over to the town water. And then the next number they have given us is 200 parts per trillion. And if it's over 200 parts per trillion, then they consider that a different level of hazard, and that water, the state has told us, cannot even be used for exterior purposes. So if your water is greater than 200 parts per trillion, you cannot retain your well. The well must be abandoned. If your water is between 20 and 200 parts per trillion, the homeowner is allowed to maintain the well for irrigation purposes. So as part of our discussion with each homeowner, we will have the test results. And if you fall under 200 parts per trillion and wish to retain your well for irrigation purposes, we would do the appropriate plumbing to separate that, retain your well for irrigation and separate it from the domestic water. So there's a series of steps that have to occur interior to your plumbing, depending on if your well is abandoned or not. If your well is abandoned because it's over 200 parts per trillion, the well has to be cut off and plugged. And then each home is different. Most homes have a pressure tank. Some also have a water softener or a filter. All of that would be removed, and then your house would be moved over permanently to town water. Should you retain your well, because it is under 200 parts per trillion, the pressure tank, the filter, and the water softener will stay, and they will be hooked up to an outside hose connection and separated from the domestic water, and the house would be connected to the domestic water. Independent, these will not be connected together. And then as part of the project will restore landscaping, shrubbery, patch driveways, rebuild patios if we have to go through a patio, all of that. And that's part of the site visit process to understand that kind of work. The project team, the airport and their contact information, my name, my contact's not here, interestingly enough, but you can get me through NOAA. And then Weston Solutions is the licensed site professional, or the scientists on board that are providing the testing and analysis of the water. And that is the end of the formal presentation. Through the chair, I would open it up to questions.
Just remind you to please use your raise hand icon, and we have a screen where the chair will either delegate or recognize in the order in which the hands come up. Thank you.
I'm going to defer to you, please, Noah, because your eyesight is better than mine, I think, to see.
Okay. Thank you. Rich, could I ask you to, actually, Rich, you could keep your presentation up so we could reference it for any questions. Sure. The first hand I see is for Molly Glazer. I believe you'll have to unmute yourself before asking a question.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Molly Glazer. I'm 53 Skyline Drive. You did answer several of my questions, and I'm wondering if I did my own testing last year, and I was under the that standard that you mentioned. But I wonder why you are extending down Skyline Drive, because are you expecting the water flow of the PFAS to go in that direction?
So, Madam Chair, if I can answer. So we are extending the main down Skyline Drive because we need to get water to 77 and to 87. And the only way to get them the water is to connect to the existing water service that's on Woodland Drive. So we're building a main down the entire street to provide water to two people that, as of today, have been impacted by the greater than 20 parts per trillion.
And I'll add to that. I believe I made the assumption that the water main would travel down Monahanset to Webster to access those properties. And Mr. Lasden did his work and informed us that it would be more cost effective for the airport to access via Woodland.
So how long do we have to go into the town water? How many years do we have?
So the connection, I'm sorry, you said 53. I don't see that on here.
It says 63 on the map, but it should say 53.
Okay, so there will be a permanently installed connection to the edge of the property line with a valve on it. And that is a standard water company valve. So someday in the future, if you choose to connect to it, there's a valve, quote, waiting for you to do that.
Okay, and will you be contacting me for specifics? Each house you'll be contacting. Is that
So
correct?
through the program, we will be individually contacting the impacted homes. Yours is not an impacted home in that you're
Okay.
not getting service to your house. Through this discussion right now, if you want us to, right now, if you can see my cursor, maybe the curb stop is going to be right here. If you go out there and say, I don't want it there, I want it over here, then you need to reach out to the airport and say, move
Okay.
my potential connection point from where you show it to over here. And that's
Okay.
very easy to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
And thank you, Ms. Glazer. The next hand that I have is Jay Truby. If you could unmute yourself, Mr. Truby, please.
Yeah, it's Jay Truby, 83 Skyline Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I'm a little concerned because we're between the two people that tested positive. We had 2 tests last year, you guys and Western Solutions. I had a private person, and I guess we test below the threshold. But my concern is it's only a matter of time where we're going to be positive. In fact, my concern is only a matter of time everybody's going to be positive. That's a forever chemical, that PFAS, right? So what are the plans on any more testing? Like if we'd like to get tested to be on a safe side, do we have to get it privately done again, or will you guys hire Weston to do us? Because we're on 83, we're between 77 and 87 are both positive. So it's a little concerning.
So I can answer that, and then I'll defer to Georgie if I miss anything. So Mr. Truby, we have been sampling a number of homes that are on POETs for the better course of a year now, and we've also been sampling homes that have been near the 20 part per trillion threshold, and we found that seasonally and throughout the year, the concentrations do not differ. They don't move people above or below the threshold. So at this time, we do not, through Weston Solutions, plan on sampling your home again. If you elect a private sampling and it shows that you now have results above 20 parts per trillion, we would certainly want to know. I believe in that instance, we would then follow up with a confirmatory sample via our consultant, and we would act accordingly under the MCP. If the MCP would require us to take on the cost of your water connection for a confirmatory sample, I believe we would do that.
What's do you know the approximate cost of hooking up if we elected to hook up even though we didn't test positive?
So speaking only from the material that Mr. Lasden's firm has put together for other homes in the area, the total cost, as we've estimated for the connection, for landscaping restoration, and for the interior plumbing work can range from $20,000 to $30,000 per home.
And POET systems are 5 to 10,000.
5 to 10,000 with I don't remember offhand what the average annual maintenance cost is.
So you're safer and better off just getting a POET system, and then you're good to go in case the town water ever becomes contaminated. Isn't that a concern? Maybe not for us, but for our kids and their kids.
I believe personally, I would disagree. I believe that town water has, I don't want to speak for the water company, but I believe they're required to do quarterly testing. And, the ideas behind testing and utilizing a town water system is that if one pumping well were to become contaminated, that well could be metered, shut off, or to be a one point of treatment system for municipal water system. So even though the future of PFAS and PFAS testing is uncertain, I think communities have ultimately found themselves better to address it on the municipal side versus multiple sort of one-off POET treatments. Rich, would you have anything to add to that?
No, I'm all set.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Which I know there's a lot of questions about future issues. On slide 2, there is the flow direction of groundwater. I don't know if that might be pertinent to the conversation. It's a flow that sort of dictated the testing, and could help give people insight on potential, where the justification for why maybe your house is next to a house that tested positive, but your house tested negative.
Okay, the next hand that I see is Erica Mooney. Erica, could you unmute yourself?
Thanks, Noah. I just have a couple questions. I am at 60 Skyline Drive. My water has not been tested. I guess I'm in the area where it's planned to not be tested, but what if I am high and you aren't testing my water? And then I mean, if you're running the water down the whole road, wouldn't you test everyone just to be on the safe side?
So again, I'll take that, and then I'd like to defer to Georgie if I miss anything. The pathway for the airport's investigation has been to step out sampling as required by the state controlling law, which is I believe it's cited as the 21E Mass Contingency Program legislation or rulemaking. And it defines by law under a regulated party investigation what should be tested in case of a positive result, how far. And we've tested according to those guidelines, and we've defined the boundary of the airport investigation. And as a commercial service airport, I think anyone can understand we have limits to how far we should be using our revenue and our funds to test for PFAS contamination once we've left sort of the probable impact boundary of the airport. In areas of the airport, we have already found that there is PFAS contamination, potentially of 25 to 42 parts per trillion entering the airport. We're not the only potential PFAS contributor, and based off of the expertise of the licensed site professional firm, for colloquial word, we've chased the likely, extent or impact area of airport contamination to the investigation boundary. And unless our knowledge of the site or information changes, we won't be chasing it any further.
Okay, and I have one more follow-up if I may. Most municipal projects now require curb-to-curb repaving when you're opening up a road. Will that be happening on Skyline Drive, which is a private road?
My understanding is no, but I'd like to refer that to Rich.
Because I will say, working for the town myself, we pretty much require all jobs like this to be curb to curb.
I guess we will investigate that further with the town.
Thank you.
If I can just expand a little bit more on what Noah said with regards to the MCP that the DEP dictates. So the homes on Skyline that tested 20 parts per trillion or more, and you're then required to go out 500 feet and sample all the other wells surrounding that in 500 feet in that direction. And if any of those are 20 parts per trillion or up, then you have to go out another 500 feet. So we did not find that when we stepped out.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Erica, did we answer all of your questions?
For now, yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I see June Truby, you're next.
Thank you, Noah. My name is June Truby. I'm at 83 Skyline Drive. Jay did address a question that I had earlier, but I was wondering, since we are below the threshold of the 200 parts per trillion, or the 20 part per trillion, and we are between 87A and 77, I know that the PFAS moves around, and I am very concerned because we are in the middle, and I know that the flow goes the other way, but 77 is above the flow of where the gentleman earlier showed the map. if our water tests higher, let's say next summer, will you connect our home to the stop at the street? I mean, what is the length of time that you're going to allow for this? If we test higher, do we have a year, 2 years? What length of time do we have where the airport is going to be responsible, since the home on either side of us both have PFAS?
That's a good question. I don't have that answer. I'd like to see if Georgie does.
Sure. And you're at 83, so you were non-detect, is that correct?
Well, it's detectable, but it's lower than the 20 parts per trillion.
Okay.
So we have PFAS, but it's not, within your range.
Right. So as it stands right now, no treatment is required.
That's well, we didn't get the bottled water, so I'm assuming not.
I guess we'll have to consult also with the LSP, Noah.
And we would like to get another water test.
My suggestion, Ms. Truby, is it's a good question. It's a technical question for the 21E regulations. I'd like to follow up with the LSP and then give you an answer by email, if that's all right.
And
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Noah, this is Mina Macarius. I can perhaps weigh in with a slight addition to that, if that's okay.
I'd say please do. I believe that's all right with the chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Truby, my name is Mina Macarius. I'm outside counsel for the airport. So just to be clear, in terms of liability, for if there is a release linked to the airport later, the airport would still have some responsibility to help address it, whether or not it's still doing this particular work. As Noah said, it's not always clear, especially how often PFAS has been used in a variety of contexts, exactly where PFAS is coming from. There's also very different, and this is more on the technical side, as I believe was mentioned earlier, where PFAS is found isn't just limited to flow, because it doesn't necessarily just stay in groundwater, but may have to do with the construction of the well, the construction of, and why it didn't get into your system. So certainly hope the good news there continues, but the MCP itself doesn't have as strict of a shelf life. It should a problem come up later.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mina. Mrs. Truby, do you have any follow-up questions or?
No, I will just I look forward to hearing from you with your further investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I see Mary Leopard.
You need to unmute.
You're still muted, Mary.
Oh, hey, it's Mary Lepre and Matt Peel at 87 Skyline. So we have a POET system and we'll be getting the water. But I'm just wanted to comment because we've been having our water tested every month since October, and the number does change. So I do think it's a little short-sighted for the airport to think that they don't need to check anyone ever again, because our numbers have ranged from initially, I think it was 36.5 and has gone over 43 the last I checked. So it does change month to month. It's always been over 20, but it has been as high as I think 43 or 44. So, and I think that the plume does move depending on the weather and the amount of rain that we're getting because of the sand, and depending on how deep our wells are. And our well is from 1986 and not very deep. So I just would urge that the airport think about maybe doing some more serial testing of these of the other houses, because I do think that you're going to find more places have are now more than 20 parts per trillion, and it's sort of not fair to our neighbors to say, oh well, you got tested once and you didn't test in, so you don't get any of the these benefits. So that's just my comment. I don't know if that's an option for you guys to do that. I just think it's short-sighted to go based on one test.
Thank you, Mary, for your comments. I think the only counter that I would offer is, I think he's quoted 36 to 43. You know, it's a change of 7 parts per trillion, but on a percentage basis, it's less of a percentage base. And of course, we'll always follow the science, what's required by state law and what's recommended by the licensed site professional. So thank you.
My husband has a question too.
Hey, Noah. Are you guys, is there plans also, since you're running the water mains, to do fire hydrants as well?
Yes.
Rich, could you expand on that in just a little more detail on what interval or how many?
So the fire department spacing is based on water company standards. It's every 400 or 500 feet down the street. So yes, there will be fire hydrants installed.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, sorry, I just lost my mute button for a second. Next up, I have David Sculptor.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I have 2 questions. One, following up on Mary's topic, I've been doing a remediation of a commercial property, and my understanding is that it takes 20 years when you have contamination to extract that because of the movement of the chemicals and the concerning substance in the ground. And so I would agree that 1 or 2 years of testing is not at all sufficient, as we were told that the plume does move, and we did see originally maps of the plume, and I don't think it should fall on the landowner to keep testing for the next 20 years. The second question, or that's a comment. The question, I think our property, and we're 28 Nantucket Valley Road, I think we are below the 20 parts per million. If you could confirm that, I'd appreciate it. But we did get water. So if we don't get hooked up, do we get the water supply forever and ever? Because that's what you deemed viable for us in our situation with our numbers. So I'm assuming that would probably continue. And then my third question is, I noticed that you're doing some subterranean, so horizontal boring for the pipeline, for the water main, and that it is around our property on Nantucket Valley Road. And I was wondering why, could you just explain, it's more an interest of why some you're digging a trench and some, on one document I saw, it was horizontal subterranean drilling or boring.
So MVR, I have the map here up on MVR. MVR was a very challenging place to install a water main. There is, as everybody knows that lives out there, is this gravel traveled way that it acts as the road. On both sides of that are protected habitat. What we found in our research through property maps is that the actual right-of-way for the road is along the edge of all these parcels. All these parcels stop at this nice, neat black line. That is the actual right-of-way of the public street. So the traveled way meanders in a lot of different places. In this area where it's all blue, it happens to be the traveled way is on airport property. so that we could build a water main without having to get any easements or having to deal with property that's not ours. Right here, where your property is, the traveled way is actually on land bank property. And we were not allowed to get a utility easement on land bank property. So we needed to directional drill in the actual right-of-way of the road. So that's why it is there. Then it follows the gravel, the traveled way and the road actually are in the correct location here. And then again, we traveled through directional drilling through the right-of-way to these last couple of homes. So it was a very challenging place to install a utility.
Thank you, Rich.
So-
There was a, Mr. Sculthorpe, I can address the second question, or if there was a follow-up to your third question, whichever way you'd like to go.
So the follow-up with the third question is, does the horizontal boring therefore not affect the vegetation above it? Like you'll actually see no scarring of the land the day after the construction is done?
So the directional drilling was a approved process with in Massachusetts, it's the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program that manages and oversees habitat. And that was an acceptable installation procedure with them.
Okay.
There is at each end of the directional drilling, you have to dig a pit so you can push it in and then pull it out at the other end. So there is, and those pits are located in the gravel road. But then the pipe is pushed under the habitat. Based on.
And you're also,
I'm sorry?
go ahead.
And as I said, it's all based on approvals from the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program.
Okay. And so thank you for that. I understand that. And lastly on that, there are also buried power lines, right? So you're all
The
aware.
buried power lines are actually in the town right of way. The power line and the phone line, you guys can go out there and see the boxes that years ago when they were installed, they installed them in the right of way. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you. And Noah, if you could answer question 2, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. So I think the second question had to do with supply of bottled water relative to your property. I'm looking at my cheat sheet, and I see that you are signed up. We have you for a curb stop only, which to me indicates that your level is below 20 parts per trillion, but I do not have, I'd have to go into my further data set to find the exact number. At some point, the delivery of your bottled water will stop with the consultant's issuance of what I believe the MCP identifies as a solution statement. I don't have that time frame, and I don't know, Georgie, if you know more about the solution statement process and the time frame for that being issued.
Sorry, no, that the solution process.
Correct.
I can follow up with you on that, David, up with the LSP. You know, and you did have some of those comments regarding, you know, the levels. Just, it should be known too that AFFF application has ceased on the airport since, what is the exact date, Noah?
I believe our last ground application was October of 2018.
So there's, you know, the airport itself is not adding more to the property in any way, shape, or form. So we shouldn't be seeing any drastic increases or fluctuations or orders of magnitude increases by any means. I just wanted to point that out there.
Thank you. When did the airport start using the chemical?
Based off of the information that we filed with DEP was based off of our training records and interviews of our longest serving staff. Our longest serving staff started in 1989. So in all likelihood, it was before 1989, but just because of the formulation of the AFFF in use at that time. But the furthest back we can confirm is 1989, and that's the date we filed with Mass DEP.
Okay, my last question and is, so there, if we don't get a hookup, compliments of the airport, then we will not need to sign a release. So if the problem does get worse, then you would be accountable for solving it for us.
Right, so there are two questions in there. We have more detailed documents for some of these parcels. The curb stop is located just inside of the property line. So even for the curb stop, we may require release for that portion of the work on your property. I'd have to look at your specific parcel. And then I defer to, I think, what council indicated, that there isn't an expiration date if, you know, our knowledge of the site changes or the data changes and the airport is responsible for the contamination. I think, you know, we would address it if and when. Any more questions, sir?
No, thank you. Appreciate my time.
Next up, I see John Ward.
You're muted, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got several different concerns here that pertain. I'm at 44 Montahanset, directly across the road from the fire station. For unrelated reasons, I have recently been connected to town water. But with that said, I still have other concerns. First off, I know that my property, the watershed goes through my property. So with that said, are we drinking contaminated town water now?
So again, I don't want to speak for the water company, but I know they have a testing program, and going off of memory only, of 5 wells, I believe 3 tested non-detect for PFAS. Of 2 wells, 2 tested at very low concentrations of PFAS, which may or may not just be attributable to the tap and the Teflon tape and dope that they use to make that connection.
My next question, I'm going to assume doesn't pertain directly to me so much as the community around me. When, where, and how are you taking these water tests? And I ask this specifically because one of these ladies spoke that their water is not being tested because they came in too low before, but I'm getting water delivered to my guest cottage and I'm on town water. So if I'm on town water and I'm getting water delivered and this person isn't, tell me how are we coming up with these sources saying we do or do not need water? And while I'm asking this, my next concern is that chemical absorption, you know, through the skin. Is it even safe to be showering this well water at this time?
Okay, so for the first question, I would advise we follow the science, we follow the 21E guidelines. If you or any other homeowner think that these guidelines haven't been followed and someone is due something they're not receiving, we would be happy to review, and we would do that through our consultant and our LSP. On the absorption issue, I would defer you to Mass DEP or Mass Department of Public Health. We're not public health officials. I do know that they've proposed the 200 parts per trillion standard for dermal contact for showering as their limit. That's why well water or the irrigation connections for greater than 200 parts per trillion, those are required to be removed at some properties.
So admittedly, there is a concern at some point, some level.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay. And then so let's assume that we do get connected. And again, I am, but I'm asking this for the community because maybe not everyone is as vocal as I am to ask these questions. Once we get connected to town water as a community, who's incurring the cost of the month for the next infinity? They had a well, it was paid for, it was installed. They put that expense out. Who's paying their water bill for the next, again, infinity, until we know that we're safe?
So the commission policy, and I believe the approval date was at a May 2001 commission meeting, is providing an on-bill credit for $1,000. So the first $1,000 of an accrued water bill will be billed directly to the airport. That's not a use bill that the homeowner will see. And the homeowner will be responsible for all subsequent water bills.
So they're covered for about the first year and a half. Just a rough estimate based on what my bills are.
Yeah, sure. I'd say a year based off of my own bill.
Okay. But again, this seems absurd. If you've got a well that's, pump, it's going to last 15 to 20 years. Now they're going to spend $1,000 a year additional. I really don't think that's acceptable. But hey, okay, it's $1,000 a year on Nantucket. Maybe that doesn't matter to you. But my last concern, and now that I've asked my questions relating to public safety, health, whatever, what about property values? And I bring this up specifically because I recently tried to refinance my home to get into a better interest rate and such. And the first appraisal company refused to do an appraisal due to their concerns about liability. They couldn't give a property value under these conditions with the wells. They were worried about assessing. And doing multiple, transactions here on Nantucket with real estate, I watched the market closely. And when I did get an appraisal, my value came in much lower than I anticipated. Who's compensating us when we do decide to sell? And I say that, I'm not intending to anytime soon, but the fact is, this is impacting our property values. And that's not just me.
I'd say that's certainly your opinion, and that's probably a concern you should bring to your real estate counsel.
Real estate counsel or class action counsel? Because I'm not the only one being impacted. Again, I'm not trying to sell now, but I know that this is an issue.
Again, I'd say if you have any legal questions, we're represented by Mr. Macarius at Anderson and Krieger. I can provide you that contact information to whichever counsel you prefer.
If you could email me that information, and I'll send an email to you later. I've got your email. It's just something that we all need to be concerned about.
Can you distribute that information, please?
I'd like to make one final request. I received the letter that enabled me to log in today as what was it, tier 1 or whatever, because of my location. Yeah, tier 1 participant. I'd like to request you send that legal counsel information to each and every one of us in that tier 1, because maybe not everyone has the time to be here tonight, and they should be offered that opportunity to question things in the future.
Agreed. It's a good
Thank
question.
Mr. Tonkel, if you could wait until we get to your raised hand, please. Thank you for your comment, Mr. Ward. We'll certainly consider it.
All right, I'll sign off. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to check in very briefly with our chair. Jeanette, I'm assuming you'd like to, we're past 6 o'clock, but that you would want to keep taking questions.
I would say so. Keep taking questions, please.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Dan Malloy.
Good afternoon or good evening, Dan Malloy. I'm representing the Sorian family. They have a property on Mattoxam Valley Road. Two very quick and easy questions. Can you publicly announce who the bidder is that's potential, at least sounds like is getting awarded, or is that still sealed?
Yes, I can. It's the Robert B. Auer Company. And I forget the town or the city on the Cape.
Okay, I know who they are. All right. Next question. You mentioned marking something for the commission or the contractors as to where someone would want the water stub to be put in. Is it easy to make this easy if we just mark it on one of your construction drawings or on a GIS plan and just send it over? Who should we send it to?
I'd encourage you, please send me the appropriate email contact. I will get you a more in detail plan of the relevant property, and you can mark it up by hand or GIS.
Okay, excellent. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I see Erica Mooney again.
Sorry, I just had one follow-up question based on a couple of the other speakers when they were speaking about bottled water. I did not receive any bottled water because my property didn't get tested, but my neighbor at 66 did receive bottled water, and that just made me nervous that were they tested, and I'm assuming if they were, that they must have come in under the 20 parts, under the 20 number, because I would assume that I would get tested next if they came in above that.
That's correct, Erica. As far as I understand, your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor all came in under 20 parts per trillion, but I'll certainly review and see. You know, I have all the confidence in the world in McFarland Johnson and Weston Solutions. This is what they do, and they follow the MCP. But we'll certainly review and make sure that you weren't missed or owed something you didn't receive.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I see Daniel Wofford.
You're muted, sir.
You're muted, Mr. Wofford.
Sorry, I'm muted. Hi, Dan Wofford. I got to the meeting late. I had a conflict, but it ended earlier and I got on. So I missed a good bit of this, and I have a family member who's on, so it can fill me in. But my brother and sister and I own number 12 Matacasham Valley Road. It's the last house. And so I am looking at the orange line, and it stops right at 16. And maybe you address this, but I'm curious what the engineering or mechanics are that bring the water to our house. And there is a house that will be built. It hasn't been approved yet. It's in process in 14. That's question one. And then I did have a question, I missed it, but is this orange line also going to be that bore horizontal drilling, or is that the traditional laying of the pipe?
So thank you. So this is an older drawing. The water main does go down to 12.
Okay.
Goes all the way to 12. So if you see the map here, so this gray line is the traveled way.
Right.
So the water line is conventional construction in the traveled way. When we leave the traveled way, the service down to your parcel will be directional drill.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, we are likely going to move our house back, more than curiosity, some point in the future. And is the location of that pipe going to in any way, is that something you all or we ought to have discussions with you in terms of the main or any pipes being brought in, impacting how far we could move the house back, recognizing setback rules, but if in fact we were in some way able to move past even beyond Wee Weeder Avenue, the line, the old Wee Weeder Avenue, I think is the line, the property line.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
No, that was
yes.
it.
So yes, you missed the beginning of the meeting or a portion of the meeting where everybody that's having their house connected to the water service will get an individual meeting with the site engineer.
Great.
And we will discuss with you, does it get down your driveway? Is your septic field in the way? How do we puncture a hole in the side of your house to get the plumbing inside? What kind of plumbing internal to your house do we have to do? There will be an individualized discussion with every impacted homeowner.
Okay, great. And I'm not going to have you review the meeting. I just want to make one point, and I know understandably that people have had mixed experiences during this process. We have been happy with how Weston Solutions has interacted with us, and they have been responsive even when we had a problem with the poet, or initially with the poet system. So just thought I'd give you some feedback. The consulting firm has been, with our experience with them, very efficient and responsive to our needs. So notwithstanding the fact this unfortunate situation, they've done a good job from our perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, sir.
Yeah, well, not bad to hear, especially if you're working in government, some positive feedback. Okay, good luck with this.
Okay, Mr. Philip Waterman III. You're muted, Mr. Waterman.
Sorry about that. Again, I would echo Dan's comments. Thank you all for dealing with this. No, it's not fun. Just a quick question regarding Matagasham Valley Road. While you're doing the construction, and maybe I didn't hear it correctly, what is the plan to get access to and from our homes? So you just answer that. Yeah.
Yes. So the road will be closed at night. The construction will be done overnight. And we have made provisions for emergency response personnel to go around the closed road. But the individual, if you live at number 18 here, when we're building this piece of the project, you're sort of in your house at 10 o'clock at night, and then the road's closed until 6 in the morning.
Is that what the hours are? It's 10 to 6?
So, we have to finalize it with the contractor, but the plan in the project.
Yes, Rich, this is Rob Lucchini. That is correct. Yep. Right now it's 10
p.m. to 6 a.m. Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yep.
And then just being one of the two people that spends a lot of time on getting that road graded, and all of our neighbors been very generous over many years at contributing. As you all know, that road is a mess, particularly after all the summer people are there. So what's the plan to repair the road after the work is done?
To put it back in the condition it is today. There is no plans to pave it or to improve it. There is extreme difficulty with the habitat on both sides. There was a lot of challenges. So the road will be returned to the condition it is today.
Well, okay. I guess we can maybe have an offline conversation. We just paid $18,000, and we're about to do another major grading of it because it's almost impassable now.
Yep.
So we should probably coordinate that, because I don't think you'd want to have us grade it right before you tear it up, because that'd be a waste of everybody's time and money.
Yes.
So anyway, maybe I'll be in touch with my neighbor, Bill Waldorf.
Yes, contact Noah, and we can definitely have those conversations.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Thank you all very much.
Good. I do not currently see any more hands raised from our tier 1 participants. I wanted to make sure I put out a last call before I turn it back to our chair to introduce public comment.
You have a hand up from actually my Uncle Jack.
I'm sorry, but I'm missing it on my screen.
It's Kerry Wofford. He's representing Kerry.
I also got this invitation myself. We're 20 Matagasham Valley Road. I just wanted to hear a little more about town water. I see in the August 5th Inquirer and Mirror, it talks about the huge increase in water demand with 120 million gallons per month is by far the most ever, and they're expecting increases and are going to be drilling a second major well, but then would take a couple of years to get permitted. I wondered if you know the PFAS results of the tests on town water? You say it's tested, you think, every quarter. I wonder if you know how far under the 20 parts per trillion threshold the town water is.
Okay. So I do not know specifically, but it is online. It's if you Google Town of Nantucket PFAS, they'll have a website, and that will direct you to the Wanacommet Water Company test results. My best recollection is that 3 of the 5 wells tested clear. Of the 2 remaining wells, they tested just above non-detect in the 2 or 3 parts per trillion range. And the belief is some of that was related to the Teflon containing tape that was used to make the actual tap. But again, I don't want to overrepresent the water company's data, so please take that with a little grain of salt.
Thank you.
Okay, again, I'm going up and down the list for any last calls from our tier 1 participants. I'm looking for raised hands. I'm not seeing any.
Well, I tried earlier.
Okay.
I tried too, and mine's not working.
Okay, so I heard Mr. Tonkel first, then we'll go to Mrs. Sheehy. That's okay.
Yeah. So what's the 2 questions? What's the timing of the implementation as you see it today? First question.
So the project is 142 days long once construction starts. The Airport Commission last night approved the contract with the contractor. So now their contract can be executed. We, McFarland Johnson, the airport's engineers, have been in contact with the contractor. We have a pre-construction meeting for this Friday. In their initial submission of their construction schedule, they have indicated to us that there are supply chain concerns in getting plastic pipe. And it looks like at this point that they can't start construction until probably November. We are still discussing that with them to get a better understanding of that supply chain concern.
And if it started in November,
yeah,
what's the estimate on completion?
So it's 142 days, so call it 4 months.
Okay, all right, fine. Second question is, and that's 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., right? So
10 p.m. to 6 a.m. for MVR. The rest of the project, yeah,
I got that. So Bill Waldorf, who should be on this call, which I've been texting with him, who can't be. The other question I have is, do we pave it? Do we pave it?
Pave what road, sir?
MVR.
So that is not part of the program. As part of this project to pave the road, there was some significant challenges with the Natural Heritage Office in Massachusetts on constructability and what we could impact. And we put the road, we put the water line down the traveled way to limit the impact. And then where we left the traveled way, we had to do this directional drilling or tunneling under the habitat. There's habitat on both sides of the road. And in fact, according to Natural Heritage, the road itself is habitat. So there was some extreme challenges with the permitting agencies, and they agreed that the least disruptive was to construct it in the gravel road.
Okay.
And there was no discussion on paving it.
Okay. And there's no discussion from anyone on this call, Tier 1, MVR?
I don't want it paved.
I'd ask if can you address your comments? Chair delegated that through me or through the chair. If you want to ask questions to your neighbors, please.
Noah, this is Jeanette. Do we have any more public comment or people that are not on the tier one?
We have one outstanding comment from Miss Sheehy on tier one, and I believe we have one hand raised from the general public list.
Okay, I think if we take those, then we can wrap it up.
Okay. Miss Sheehy, we'll take your
Yes,
question.
Hi, yes, I'm at 42 Skyline. My husband received a letter and to our home in Delray Beach, Florida. So I'm sorry, I don't have all the information. He just asked me to join this call. Am I to assume that if I didn't have water delivered to my porch that I've been tested and that we're good? Or do I have to privately test my water?
So Miss Sheehy, do you mind repeating your address for me, please?
42 Skyline.
Richard, do you mind going back to that figure?
Yeah, I'm
It
sorry.
doesn't jump out to me as a residence that I recall being tested.
So do we need to do our own testing?
If you want your water, Rich, could you zoom in on that figure?
Yeah, I'll get a better one.
Thank you. So my advice is you're not part of the airport's investigation, and it's very unlikely that you will be part of the airport's investigation. However, PFAS is a ubiquitous chemical. If you have concern over your water, there are some state programs. I believe they may or may not still have an open application for free testing. Otherwise, if you want to email me, I can provide you with the names of firms that I know of that conduct this test, but that would be at your cost.
So at this point, I would have just a curb stop at my property line.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Jeanette, with your permission, Mina suggested that we take Ms. Sorian's comments before we move to the public comments.
That would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Delphine Sorian.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm in a place where I can't put my camera on, but I just wanted to just make the statement. I'm glad that we're not paving the road, Maddoxham Valley Road, and I really hope that putting in this, the connection to the town sewer is just that. It's not changing any other part of the infrastructure of what is there other than connecting us to safe water. And I hope that that remains the intent of this whole project, which I'm sure it does, but I just, for the record, wanted to say I have no interest in paving that road, and I hope that the rest of my neighbors feel the same way. It would change everything out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorian. And I'd like to thank our Tier 1 attendees. The slide link with links to my email address is up. I would be happy to take any questions or direct them as appropriate. I'm going to move on to public comment at our chair's direction, and I see Andrew Mulcahy with a question.
Hi, thanks. I think I probably know the answer to this, but I got my place tested and it was at a just above a trace amount, I think 3 parts per trillion. And I've been getting the water, but I'm at 1 Webster Road, the road that bisects Skyline. So obviously the plan is to go down Skyline. So there is no opportunity for a curb stop, I assume. I mean, you're jumping down and continuing down by the airport, and any the water in the future where we are on Webster would have to be something that is initiated by the town and want to comment.
That's correct. Below 20 parts per trillion, you would have to initiate your water service connection. I'd like to take just another look offline at your property boundary and your location if you would be receiving a curb stop or not.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, I do not see any more questions from members of the public No hands raised. There's only one other member of public in attendance. So I think that will close public comments. And Jeanette, I'll turn it over to you for commissioner comments.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate yours and Rich's help in all of this, as well as the other members of your teams. And I guess, I don't know, do we have any members of commission members here that, for I should have a motion for adjournment? Or do I just adjourn it myself?
So without Mr. Buscarin here, I don't think you need a motion. I think you can do as you please.
Okay, and I thank all the homeowners who participated also. Thank you very much, guys. I really did appreciate it. And as you can see, I need help. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We all need help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Noah. No, I loved
didn't
it.
step on your toes.
No, I would not have been able to do any of that. You were the guy with all the information,
Well,
you know?
I'm also
And I was happy.